Hi, welcome. If you haven't been here before, this is Birds, Bees, and Beyond. My name is Caro, and I'm a student at Florida International University. And this is going to be our second episode. And the title of our second episode is going to be We Are Whole People. And now I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Sorah.
Hi, I'm Sorah and I'm a sex educator. I've been doing this for 18 years, and I have a wealth of information to share. I was also married. I was also a student of spiritual disciplines. I think you will enjoy what you're going to hear.
That sounds great. So I wanted to ask you about how you talk about intimacy as involving all four layers, body, heart, mind, and spirit. Why do you think our culture tends to focus mostly on the body?
So, Western culture has denied the mind-body relationship for years and years and years. In the East, they focus on transcendent aspects of sexuality, and sex is energy. It's a byproduct of Western culture. So the focus is on the body, sex is about the body, but without the mind, the spirit, and the heart, you have empty sex.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I would also say how you've mentioned stress and illness or medications can dull the body. How do you think people can reconnect physically with one another?
They have to want there are exercises they can do, but to reconnect with one another means opening. Opening your heart, opening your mind, being vulnerable, trusting, all these other layers that go beyond the body. Stress can kill intimacy. You get so focused on just, survival mode that you forget about, how to be loving and tender and warm.
That's very true. I would say that that goes along also with the emotional side of it, stress interfering with how vulnerable you can be, how emotional you can be with someone,
Exactly.
which is what
Yep.
brings me to ask you, what does leading with your heart look like without losing yourself? Because, a lot of people in this society are afraid of giving too much, giving too little. They're just overall afraid and not really knowledgeable of what to do, what to expect.
Yeah, that people can get hurt. And that's one reason people don't open their hearts. But if you meet someone and there's an attraction, you have to go deeper within yourself. Are you willing to take a risk? Opening your heart means risking being hurt. But you can also look at it as if you do get hurt, you have an opportunity to look at why and who was that person? Why were you in an encounter? And what were you really looking for in this encounter? So, yeah, opening the heart is risky, but if you don't, you're missing out on the emotional aspect, on just being open. And if you don't open the heart, you might as well be with a robot because you're just objectifying people rather than expressing reverence. There's a phrase, intimacy means into me see. And if you're not opening your heart, then you're not expressing the real you. There's fear, there's a wall.
Yeah, of course. I see where you're coming from. I see a lot of correlation between the emotional aspect of it and also how your mind involves itself when you're having sex, when you're closed off. A lot of the time, your mind works against you just as much as it works with you. So I wanted to see if you could give me an example of how mental scripts can interfere during sex, during difficult relationship situations,
Yeah,
and how can you distance yourself from them?
we go into encounters with a script. The sum total of all our beliefs, cultural ideas, things like big boys don't cry, sex means this or that. And I just heard a new expression yesterday from my students. It had to do with women and value. A woman who sleeps around too much is still considered a slut. But those are all ideas in our head, and they become part of the script. People watch a lot of pornography, that becomes part of the script. So The mind or mental aspect is in a relationship is to let all of that go and come back to presence and connection and breath, and know that all of these ideas and beliefs can dissuade, can interfere with having a positive, loving experience, which is what I think most people want. But I take that back. Some people are into abuse. Some people are into objectivity. Not everybody wants that, but it's up to one person, one of the partners. If you are going to have an enlightened encounter, you have to really, it's like read the room.
Yeah, of course. Like you don't want to get too much into your head and you want to make sure that you feel comfortable with what you're doing. But that also opens up a lot about like how you said boys don't cry. I think that that's a really large aspect of like how society, sees men and like
Yeah.
it's very sad the fact that we feel like men can't be emotional or they shouldn't be
Hmm.
emotional. Like it's just something very taboo as well and something that I've always wanted to learn about more, because I'm not a man, so obviously it's difficult for me to see that perspective. But that goes into this other question that I had, how the spiritual layer feels abstract and spiritual intimacy looks like in real life, and how does Eros show up beyond the physical, like art, nature, creativity? Like how does it show up spiritually?
So Eros is from Eros and Essence is the name of my book. Eros is that joy, that zest for life, that and I do this, the sensation and sensuality, not even sexual sensuality, but and enlivening. I call Eros is that which animates life. And when we're in an encounter, what is it you want to experience? All of these layers tie up together. It really goes back to what is your intention and doing some intentioning, in conscious intention exercises. But for spirit, if you want to have your experience spiritual, I call it transcendence. And if it means you have to, open your heart, you have to see what your thinking really is. Your body can't be dull. Your body needs to be good, healthy. You need to be physically healthy. And then to set an intention. So I'm equating setting intention with the spiritual aspect. And the intention is that this person in front of you, this is the beloved. In the East, they call it the beloved. In the East, they talk about and anyone you're having sex with is an aspect of God. So you're going into this with reverence. You're going into this with a sense of devotion. You're going into this to give pleasure more than getting pleasure. And one thing that's really important is you have to know your partner. There is something called sexual intelligence, and it leads up to this spiritual point, but it just briefly, it's knowing yourself, knowing who your partner is, and sometimes we misjudge, and that's a whole other aspect we can talk about. How do you know that somebody's really worth giving yourself to? Yeah. Knowing yourself, knowing your partner, knowing what the culture is like, and the culture really affects sexual behavior, and then knowing something about science. If nothing more than being aware of your anatomy, being aware of how erection occurs, being aware of the menstrual cycles, leads to this spiritual dimension, joy, pleasure, closeness, being aware of the energy in your body. There's energy centers that you can activate, and so that the experience becomes what I call transcendent. The experience or especially orgasm, instead of a sneeze, it becomes a tsunami. you're full after that experience instead of feeling depleted after that experience. And that comes from adding this additional spiritual dimension.
I agree. I really like your example of the sneeze versus tsunami. I think that it really defies how, the difference between an orgasm can feel. Which brings me to ask you, the last couple questions that I have. Why do you think that people nowadays settle just for partial intimacy? The youth now is, seeing different aspects. They see some friends who are like, hey, I just have sex with whoever I want. And they see friends who are like in committed relationships, or they've been in committed relationships and only had sex with lifelong partners, or what they assume to be lifelong partners. How would you say that someone from a virgin perspective should see that partial intimacy?
Again, the culture's changed over the years. It's become that young people need to think about themselves first, and they're not even looking for intimacy. Maybe in their 30s, culture for the past, I'd say at least 30 years, if not maybe a little bit longer, has been geared towards individualism, making sure, you got that education, that good degree. It's make sure you can get a job, make sure you can take care of yourself. So it's self-oriented, and being self-oriented kind of it is the opposite of what intimacy is. Intimacy takes time. Intimacy takes thought. When I mentioned dopamine, so a little segue. When people are in love, that addictive hunger, love, they're releasing a lot of dopamine. And that lasts like 2 to 4 years. You get this dopamine high and you're in love, and you can, and you start making babies. What's happened in our society is that there's other outlets that activate that dopamine. Video games, porn, big one. When you get a like on your Facebook page, you get a hit of dopamine. All of that is using up dopamine, and dopamine is what we equate with this romantic love that is like the doorway to deeper intimacy. This was called by Helen Fisher like in 2007, and it's like come to fruition. So partial intimacy doesn't work. We have something called serial monogamy. You're with somebody 3 months, you're in a situation, which is very superficial, and yet I really believe that the hunger is there for real connection. It's just people forgot, or people are too busy, and lots of stress, lots of distractions. But partial intimacy won't work. It has to be wholehearted, especially if you want this for the long term.
Yeah, I would say I agree with especially like the easy access that a lot of my generation has towards social media and overall technology. It just makes it a lot easier for us to get that dopamine, even something as simple as listening to music. Like I had a conversation with a friend not too long ago about someone who stopped listening to music for some time, like I think 2, 3 months, because it was just they felt like they were becoming addicted to it, which you would see it as a healthy addiction because music doesn't seem so bad as like video games or pornography, for instance, as you said. But it just goes to show the instant gratification that we get from these things that we have at our hands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your generation is having less sex than my generation had. Fewer babies are being born, marriages are down. What's happened to intimacy? What's happened to the family structure? And it's been, I mean, economics, technology, I mean, it's been co-opted by all these other distractions that we have.
Thank you for answering the questions I had for you. I think that now it's safe to say that we can begin with the guided practice breathing exercise. So I'll let you take the reins on that.
We're going to do a guided meditation that involves setting an intention, using the breath to deepen ourselves. That's something else. If you really want a good sexual experience, you have to learn how to use your breath. and especially breathing in deep into the diaphragm, breathing in and out of the heart. So we're going to focus on some breath exercises. We're going to use some imagery. We are going to focus on sensations, sensate focus. One thing about sensate focus, just it's so practical to think about that because it makes all of life more enjoyable. Like good food. I think Americans eat a lot of crap. You can cut that out. But do we take time to eat, nice meals? Do we take time to drink, fine wine or whatever it is you like to drink? Do we just take time to listen for birds, to the scent, activate the sense of touch? And that's how it had more enjoyable lives, and not just and activate what I'm calling eros, this animation and this stuff that animates life. Freud called it libido. Taking time, settling, going through these four steps will not enhance not only your sex life but enhance life in general. That's the point I wanted to make. If you're listening, if you're watching, take some time to just close your eyes and start dropping the breath down. Start to become aware of breathing in and out of your heart. So breath connects with heart, breath connects with emotion. And if you can breathe into the count of 4 and breathe out to a count of 4, and again, the focus is on your heart. And imagine that there is a glowing ball of light in your heart. And with every inhale, that light expands. And this is a mind clearing exercise. And mind clearing, it's also heart opening. And you can repeat to yourself silently without losing the breath. You can repeat, I open to love and presence. And again, imagine you're just in your heart. Imagine with every inhale, you're expanding. With every inhale, you're letting go of something you don't need. But you're affirming, you're setting an intention. I open to love and presence. And look how easy it is or feel how easy it is just to relax, just to be willing to relax and open. And now you could take your hands and rub them together, get some energy into them. And you can take these, you can feel the energy in your palms and just run your hand up and down your arm to feel the energy between your arm and your hand. And the idea is to eventually, with this kind of practice, you can do the other on hand and arm. With this kind of practice, it sensitizes you to the energy body. And we didn't talk about the energy body, but again, in the East, that's what the focus is. Sexual energy as energy, Kundalini, prana, chi, that runs up and down the spine. And as sex and orgasm is one way to awaken this. But practices like breath practices, meditation, prayer, it's what you're bringing up all this energy and awakening, opening up to spirit, opening up to the universe. And that's why so many people say, what? Oh God, at the point of orgasm, because that's what you're doing. You're expanding, you're dropping boundaries, and you're expanding into the universe just by affirming presence, practicing breath, practicing imagining golden warmth, and becoming very sensitized to the energy level of our physical form. And you can open your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you for leading us with that breathing exercise. I think it was really good. And I just wanted to finish off the video by saying that, if you have any questions about our channel, you can leave them below in a comment. And if you've made it this far, just like and subscribe, and we'll be back very soon.
You can read all my articles on Substack. The address will be in the description below, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. Thanks for tuning in.